How do you create big change with small steps and prototypes? Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, the actuary at Taxevity. I help people who care about sustainable financial independence harness the power of life and health insurance. Our guest today is author Alan Kay. Alan, what do you do when you're not being interviewed?
I'm in the change management business, and so are several million other people. I use a model called solution focus, which is the topic of the book you just showed folks. And it's a model that actually comes from the world of family therapy, but it's been adapted to organizations. And it's a very powerful tool for making change happen, because in solution focus, the customer is the expert, not the consultant. It's a kind of an anti-consulting model, but you actually gain a lot more ground with your clients by letting their expertise come to the fore, by asking better questions. A subject that one of your previous interviews covered as well. This is what we do, we ask better questions.
Okay, interesting. And I want to ask you about the expert part, because I think I'm an expert and you're saying that customers are experts too, so we need to resolve that.
Yeah.
First, let's talk about your process for making big change.
There's a framework to solution focus, and it's quite simple. What's working that we don't want to stop doing? What's working? What do we need to keep doing? And that's a platform for making the next round of the change. The next round is, well, what is it that we actually want? Normally organizations, after they've decided what's working, start digging into the analytics of the problem. We don't do that. We might clarify it, but we quickly start asking, well, suppose the problem didn't exist anymore. What would that look like? Because we've got all this stuff that we know we want to keep doing. What would we be doing differently, more of, etc.? And we describe that in quite a lot of detail. That can be either large-scale objectives, as we often do in strategic planning, for example, or large-scale vision of what might happen in the next couple of weeks on some immediate project. The critical part I've found over the years, and this is where the client being the expert works best of all, is you can then say to them, supposing we're doing that within 2 weeks or 2 years, what would you see yourself doing right away? What small steps would you be taking to make something happen?
Okay, so doing something right away rather than saying, here's this big project and in 3 years or a year we'll have something.
And let them see themselves making the change happen, themselves. So, in fact, I often say to my clients, my job is to get out of your way as quickly as possible. Of course, they call me back when they have other problems, but the point is, let the client see themselves engaging in the change, learning something about it, and moving forward, making progress.
And how did you settle on this approach?
I'm a fully recovered ad guy. I did actually work in that business in the Mad Men days. That was a long time ago. What I noticed after I left the business 20 years ago was how good I was at facilitating, because that's your job, particularly if you're client service, as I was. And I stumbled into this training, actually. A colleague introduced me to it. And I was trained by family therapists, professionals, the Hinks Delcrest. And I just sat there for 2 days with my jaw wide open. They were telling me a framework for all the processes that I used and adding in better questions. So I went to client meetings and asked these questions in the language of the client, which of course is another aspect of solution focus, and things got better right away. I think that was really how I kick-started my independent career.
When we're children, we're changing a lot, and sometimes we need help. We don't quite know how to ride the bicycle, but we're willing to learn. We're motivated. As we become adults, we're still changing, but we seem more reluctant to change. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very interesting because on the one hand, people appear to be stuck in change or not wanting to see change happen. I must say that in the corporate world, I've seen a tremendous change in that sense, that people are now more willing to embrace it and ask for it than they were, say, 15, 20 years ago. But still, it's very hard for people to move out of where they are because usually they're noticing more about the problem they're stuck in than they are about the change they want to see happening.
Well, I know that you focus on solutions, and I like to think that I do also. Why do you think people focus on the problems instead? Because there's quotes about if you're looking at your goal, the obstacles don't even appear. People know those things, yet still they need help.
Yeah, two aspects to that. I think it's what we've been doing in the last 20,000 odd years of civilization. We're
Okay.
very good at solving problems. That is why, as I say, we're no longer hanging around the trees with our fellow chimpanzee cousins.
Right.
We do know how to solve problems. The issue is, particularly in this era, things are so complicated inside organizations and so on, that going on talking about the problem simply slows down the process. And so people get stuck. And what we're trying to do is help them notice the changes that are already happening around the problem and where they are making, where they can start making some progress.
Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, I like the idea of solving problems myself to the extent I can, but I realize that there are times when that's not possible. And recently you were involved in a situation where you were brought in to deal with a really complicated situation. Can you tell us how you felt about that experience?
Yeah, this story actually reflects the title of our subject, which is to get big change happening, you need some small change happening. It was a very complicated situation, a lot of angst, we'll call it, in the organization, particularly amongst a specific team. And I was called in to help relieve some of the angst. However, I said to the client, I don't think I can help unless we have a clear goal. I was given a clear goal right away. The trick was to go to the team that was looking for the most help in the most angst-ridden mode. And I wasn't particularly welcomed in that team because I was just another outsider from corporate. And what I did was say to them, so here's the goal that's been set for you. What are your goals? And with some good facilitation, obviously, help them figure out what their goals were within the thing that they were most anxious about. Okay. And we began the process right there by them noticing that they could have goals instead of just complaining.
What kind of obstacles did you find in the process?
Very hard for them to let go of their frustration, anger in a lot of cases, because it was something that had been happening very publicly, and so there was a lot of hurt people and a lot of people who didn't trust each other, never mind an outsider coming in.
Because an outsider has the advantage of a different perspective, but at the same time, they are an outsider. And why should we trust this person? They're just going to leave after this project and we'll be stuck where we are.
So this is the beauty of solution focus. I hope I don't sound like I'm selling right now, but there is a very powerful element to solution focus. As a practitioner of the model, you go in knowing your client knows the solution. It's just not clear to them. Your client knows the solution, it's just not clear to them.
And I've heard you say that in the past because we've known each other for several years, and I still don't understand that.
Right. So I say I have to be like Detective Columbo.
Okay.
I just keep asking questions to help them notice where they want to get to, what it is that would be different, obviously what they're already doing that doesn't have to change, and then a few small questions about what would happen to make some small progress. So stepping outside of the complexity and the anxiety that they have, knowing that they know the solution, it's just not clear to them. It may sound a bit Zen-like, but it's actually very practical.
But you are an outside expert, you've got perspective, etc. You may have an idea of what the solution is. Why don't you just tell me?
Oh, yes, I know.
Then we're done.
Yes, you idiots. Why don't you listen to me? I know what you should do. And the answer is that's one way to do it. The chances of them listening to you and actually taking action on it, they may listen to you. They may say, fantastic. But taking action on it is another thing. This is why many clients who engage large consulting firms have the decks of the project sitting on their desk gathering dust.
Okay.
Dust, not dusk.
For this particular client, what were the big benefits that resulted from your help?
calming down, enough to listen to each other, even begin to listen to the people they were most distrustful of, their executive. In then listening to each other, noticing that one of their own issues was they were very siloed, and suddenly people who never normally talked to each other, who resented each other, were in the same room talking about what they wanted to be different. And thirdly, scaling down every meeting in the early stages to, yes, that sounds like it's very difficult. Supposing things got better, what would that look like? And then saying, supposing we picked one or two of those and started working on them, what would that look like? And it had a very calming effect on them over time.
What do you think happens when you're no longer there? Do you think the progress continues, or people...
I think that's a huge question. That's the consultant's dilemma again. I personally am very satisfied that they're going to go off and do something, and it's entirely up to them to make it work. But what I'll have delivered is value in the form of a process that helps them figure out what they want to do, and in ways that they can get going on it, so that they're not reliant on me coming back to fix it if it doesn't work.
Is there something else you'd like to tell us about this example?
I think what was most enjoyable was getting that clear goal from the executive, going to what I call a core team. This is made up of staff members, stakeholders, and saying, what are your goals? Eventually we got enough out of them to make that clear, building a process that they were really not that comfortable with. But what I kept saying to them is, what you're already good at? And I noticed a few things that were they were good at production. And I said, well, suppose if you applied your production skills to those processes that we're recommending, how would that look? Immediately, of course, they took off because they knew exactly what to do. And so we kept going back to them as the resource for change, not me, the outsider, by noticing what skills they already had, etc. Why was their product preferred amongst consumers or customers, etc., etc. And how could we do more of that instead of attacking the problem, because we can't attack the problem. It's not going to change.
Would it be fair to say that you helped change the culture?
I would say that they helped themselves shift the culture.
Okay.
Shift the culture, yeah.
Towards the beginning, you talked about how customers are experts, and I want to talk to you more about that, because when it comes to life and health insurance, I feel I'm an expert, I'm an actuary, I put in my 10,000 hours or 20,000 or maybe even more.
Yeah.
And then I've got a client. How are they an expert?
Yeah, I think it's a good one. As an example of yours, as an actuary, you've got a very deep skill, practice, knowledge, etc., etc. And you can apply that to helping customers, just as I have now got, first of all, I think I'm fairly good at advertising, my old industry. Now I've got this process. I'm an expert. I'm one of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours.
Right.
The key word there is process. I'm very good at the solution focus approach/process. The client's very good at the content. Now, when it comes to what you do, you bring a vast amount of knowledge, you interface with a client, and the client has a vast amount of knowledge, not all of which you can ever know. And so transferring between you, the expertise, what I think you're looking for is, what's the expertise the customer's got in their life around this subject, and ability to engage them on a deeper level than just a purely transactional selling some insurance.
Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying, because the approach I generally take is I figure that the clients are intelligent, they've got a problem that they want to solve, that they understand, and as an outsider, it may be tempting for me to say that your solution is this, but I know that that may not be the solution for them. I try and answer questions objectively so that they can decide what's right for them.
You've got two issues. One is you've got this brilliant actuarial skill, because you can figure out what they need very quickly. You've also got sales skills, which is about building relationships and so on. In the past, the issue was that the salesperson often thought their job was to ask just a few questions and start selling, and hoping that to force the product on the customer. I think a lot of salespeople today have realized that's not the way you do it. You build relationships, you understand the customer, etc., etc. I think what you do is you take it to the next stage, which is transferring to the customer their responsibility to be the expert in their life and help you align with that in order for you to be able to sell them something much more valuable to them.
Very nicely said. I appreciate that. Thanks, Alan. What's your key message for the people watching today?
If you're a business professional, and I mean all kinds of organizations, I do a lot of work in not-for-profit, for example, or you're in a bank, so you might be the ED of a small not-for-profit, or you might be the head of retail in a credit union. Today there are many, many tools like the one I've espoused, Solution Focus. We all have our practice skills. You have your actuarial skills. There are now many tools that help us become better professionals. And just to pick Solution Focus as an example, don't look at it as a process. Look at it as a means to improve your productivity, help you lead people, etc., etc. Ways to enhance your skill set so that it's even more valuable to your organization.
Yeah, I like how you're saying that there isn't just one way to approach problems.
No. Naturally, I think that Solution Focus is amongst the best.
Yes, I'm a fan of it because I know you, so that helps because you've written these books. And if I have a question, it's nice to be able to go to the author and get clarification because books can't always do that for you.
No. I think I would add in that pick one, go practice it, and whether or not it ends up being the best thing ever, the practice of practicing it will teach you to go and look for others. And what I say to people about Solution Focus, it's just one toolbox to add in to your existing suite of tools.
Right.
And grow your skill set in the organization through these new management models and techniques.
What's the best way for people to reach you?
I'm best reached through the internet on my webpage, one of many. This is my landing page, and it's alankay.ca. Really simple, ALANKAY.ca. This is because there is a famous Alan Kay who, when I first got on the web many years ago, he got the first pages, 18 pages on Google.
In my world, you are the famous Alan Kay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for dropping by.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?